You're very welcome along to the Matchbook Champions League podcast, match day 3. I'm your host, Daniel Hussey. I'm delighted to be joined by Mark O'Hare and Miguel Delaney. Pretty decent fixture list. I guess it's the advantage of the new format. We are getting a lot of good ties, but more of that later on in the show. The 4 games, incidentally, we will cover in our marquee section: Madrid, Dortmund, Villa, Bologna, Leipzig, Liverpool, and Barcelona versus Bayern. We'll have any other bets, long shots, and best bets. Just before we get going, if you can take 2 seconds to like, follow, or subscribe wherever you're watching or listening. Insights.matchbook.com for full recap of all the bets put up here will be available from Monday afternoon. And do check out the Matchbook Betting Exchange. All bets put up are available there. We will invariably have the best price because of the nature of the exchange, but you can, of course, use our new bet builder, which can give you the advantages of a sports book as well. But let's get going, and we will start with Real Madrid versus Borussia Dortmund and take a look at the betting that we currently have on Matchbook.com. Madrid are 1.5 favourites. Dortmund 6.8. The draw is 5.3. Both teams to score, yes, is available at 164. The Asian handicap line sees Dortmund get a 1.25 goal head start at 196, and the total for this game currently stands at 3.5. Mark, take it away on this game. I mean, the advantages of the new format, I guess, you get Madrid versus Dortmund, a one-off game in this league phase. Madrid under pressure to get wins, so decent game, decent matchup here.
Yeah, hopefully. I'd expect it to be better than the Champions League final, which played out not too long ago. Don't think that will have any sort of bearing on what happens this midweek. Dortmund now under new leadership, and obviously the game being played in Madrid under much different environment. Match day 3 of an 8-leg league. So, yeah, I thought the goal line on first glance was set a little bit high here at 181 for over 3.5 goals. I wouldn't be overly keen on just attacking that from the outset, but kind of doing more digging into this game, I did actually feel that Real Madrid to win alongside over 2.5 goals at 195, a bigger price than backing over 3.5 goals with the home heavy favourite on side wasn't a bad option to take, actually, and that's going to be my nominated selection, really, not requiring that 4th goal or more, but obviously keeping Real Madrid 3-0, 2-1 on side as well. Now, it is the Clasico this weekend, which I'm sure will take up Ancelotti's thoughts at some stage, but I don't expect him to rest or rotate too often or too much. Real Madrid don't have too many or don't have a huge squad, and there is already quite a few injuries. But they need a response, as you say, to that defeat to Lille on match day 2. They've not been the most fluent or the most sort of eye-catching so far this season, but they still just possess that outrageous kind of galaxy of stars in forward areas, really, which you would assume will be able to hurt this Dortmund defence that's not really figured itself out just yet under Şahin. I know his predecessor, Edin Terzic, had a real sort of handy knack of putting Dortmund in these big matches that matter and kind of finding a way, a tactical approach to make them quite difficult and obdurate to get past. But Şahin has struggled so far outside of Dortmund. I think back to the 5-1 smashing they had at Stuttgart. They lost their way recently away at Union Berlin, 2-1 defeat. They've actually conceded now multiple goals in 4 of the last 5 Bundesliga games, and that's not really the preparation you require going to Real Madrid. So I guess it is also worth noting that Dortmund have quite considerably overperformed in the final third so far in their 2 games, scoring 10 goals. The XG so far for Dortmund is 4.5. They did face 18 shots away at Club Brugge on match day 1. Celtic actually generated 2.2 expected goals against them, despite losing that game 7-1 away at Dortmund. So I think Real Madrid to score a couple of goals is a bit of a given here. It's just whether Dortmund can get on the score sheet too and make a bit of a game of it. And I wouldn't put it past them, but you also wouldn't put it past Real Madrid scoring 3 all on their own. But yeah, Stuttgart came here on match day 1, caused Real Madrid all sorts of problems. Probably didn't deserve to lose that match, actually, in all honesty. But I think Madrid required a couple of late goals to win that game 3-1. I wouldn't put it past a similar sort of outcome here. That game was really, really good fun for the neutral, actually. 37 shots in that game against Stuttgart, 4.6 expected goals. I don't think it'll be quite as helter-skelter here, but I expect Real Madrid to get the job done and 3 or more goals to be scored in the game. So happy to sort of package the 2 together and get close to even money.
Yeah, 196 for that. Miguel, are you in agreement there? Madrid more likely going to win the game. Is there going to be goals? Will Dortmund get on the score sheet? What's your angle for here?
Well, exactly as Mark was saying there, that question of whether Dortmund can score to make a goal about it, a game of it. When I was kind of picking on this, I was basically torn between that. I do think Madrid will win the game. I think they're very, very good at, I mean, I know we obviously had the difficulty with the Stuttgart game, but they did get through it. I think they found a bit more rhythm since then. And in terms of just getting the job done to get through the group or finish kind of in the higher places, this is what they're good at, especially these sort of games. They have a capacity for locking them down. And I think it was more because Dortmund are still, as Mark's alluded to there, there's still a bit of an unknown quantity. As Sahin kind of takes over from the Terzic era, I think there's that bit more openness to them, as we've seen in some of the results this season. But my instinct is for Madrid to win this and just lock it down. So even though I was wavering between Real Madrid and both teams to score, or both teams to score no, I've gone for the latter. I think this will be just one of those classic Madrid 1-0 or 2-0 wins that he's just going to go about it in a very professional manner in that sense. He just seems, even though this is a new Champions League group stage, this match feels set up for that sort of classic Madrid group stage home win and take on a side kind of that tier 1 or 2 just below them.
Okay, yeah, let's lock it in, because maybe a lot of the top teams will start trying to, I guess, go for that top 8. So bigger games coming up the more we go through this league phase. Madrid, both teams score no for Miguel, 3.1, or you can go for Mark. Madrid and over 2.5 goals, 196. Let's move on to Aston Villa versus Bologna. This is also Tuesday night. Villa 164 favourites versus Bologna, who are 6.0. Of course, played in Anfield. Draw 4.3. Both teams' of score market sees yes available at 191 and the favourite there. The Asian handicap line sees Bologna get a 1-goal head start at 186. The total for this game is 2.5. Miguel, just a bit on Aston Villa this season. I mean, it's a tough question, and especially at this stage of the season, but how far can this team go in both competitions? Like, what should be the target or realistic targets for Unai Emery at the moment? Because they're playing some good stuff.
Yeah, they are. I think they've picked up very well from last season. We all know about Emery's European record, mostly in the Europa League, but then the Champions League semi-final with Villarreal in 2022 suggested that step up. I think he can be aiming to do similar with Villa. With the Premier League, well, I've already finished top 4, did last season. And this year, it does feel like the 4th spot is very open again. It does feel like it's going to be, City, Arsenal, Liverpool, and one other. And that one other is extremely open. The question with Villa, and I suppose that's what's relevant to this game, is the demands and the question of how you balance both competitions. I know people point to the fact they were in European football last season, but the Champions League is different. There are less opportunities to rest players. Even the kind of the occasions themselves have a different intensity, as we saw with the Bayern game. And I think crucially and relevant to all this, the follow-up a few days later, which was the 0-0 draw against Manchester United. Villa looked that day like a team that they put so much into the game before that there's a natural knock-on effect. And I think that will become more of an issue as the season goes on. All that said, for this game itself, I think there's still going to be kind of although I think all of that is a huge caveat to consider, which maybe feed into what Mark's going to say. The very fact this is a second game in Villa Park in the new Champions League, or in the Champions League since they haven't been in since '82. I think it'll be a similar sort of night as Bayern. Not obviously not to the same degree, but there'll still be that kind of intensity around Villa Park that the team will feed off. I don't think fatigue is going to be an issue going into this game, even though they did have a challenging match the weekend coming back from behind against Fulham. So I think that and ultimately they're a better side than Bologna. But Bologna did give Liverpool real problems. I know they're in the bottom half of Serie A at the moment, but that doesn't feel like it's fully reflected performance. And they're a team who have loved draws, which is why this is another one where I very much wavered on. But because they have that ability to put it up the teams, because Villa's defensive record hasn't actually been as good as you might think, I'm going for a Villa win because they're a better side, the atmosphere, everything about it, but also both teams to score.
Okay, yeah, and that comes out at a nice price at 365. Good point on Villa. I guess their defense is the one thing they're probably not overly happy with so far this season. Mark, same question to you in terms of targets for both competitions for Villa, because really solid start to the season.
Yeah, I agree with Miguel. Knockout football in the Champions League has to be on the agenda, and a top 4 finish again. That's going to be quite challenging. kind of competing on both fronts, especially with the Champions League sort of top four being so open this season in the Premier League. But you never know, we might get the top five involved in automatic qualification for the Champions League again this season. So there's every opportunity there. Big game for both teams. This obviously both away from the European spotlight or this kind of stage for quite some time. So yeah, expecting a good atmosphere, not quite as electric as the Bayern night. And I did put in my notes whether that would be a factor actually. Obviously playing Bayern Munich in your first game in the Champions League is enormous, but does Bologna sort of attract the same sort of fervour amongst the Villa supporters? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see, really. They are fair favourites to win this game. I did think the price on them to win on the nose was slightly on the short side, just because it's basically what the market is saying is Villa are hosting a team of the ilk of Wolves or Everton, really. And I think that does do Bologna a touch of a disservice, actually. And you know, I had them on side with a big handicap start at Anfield on match day 2. We've got half stakes profit. I didn't think we were far away from a full stakes profit on that game. I thought they were brave. They attacked the match with real confidence and caused Liverpool problems. And knowing their head coach, Vincenzo Italiano, he'll ask his team to be very brave here, embrace the moment of playing in the Champions League and at Villa Park. And you know, as Miguel says, Villa haven't defended brilliantly this season, or for quite some time, actually. It's just 2 clean sheets all season. One which was against Bayern when Martinez was exceptional and Bayern missed a few really good opportunities. The other against Man United days later when just a dreadful match. And I know they've got a bit of a better clean bill of health coming into this game. Onana and Ramsey back starting at the weekend. McGinn off the bench. Konza and Kamara were on the bench as well. Duran back from obviously, it was a late arriver from international duty too. So the squad is healthier, but Fulham did have 4 big chances against Villa, according to Opta. I think considering Bologna really ought to have scored at Anfield, they actually won the shot count 12-9, hit the woodwork twice on that game. I'm not convinced this is going to be straightforward as the market suggests for Villa. So I did consider backing Bologna with a +1 start, but I think the happy medium here is to back both teams to score at 191. It's landed in 6 of 8 games in the league for both Villa and Bologna so far this season. And on that Villa defensive record, I know this is just Premier League, but even still, 5 home clean sheets in the last 23 home Premier League matches, going back to the start of last season. That's not a great record. So I absolutely believe Bologna can get on the score sheet, and this should be quite fun. So I've backed both teams to score at 191, but couldn't put you off Miguel's angle either, because it is a nice increase on the Villa price on the nose.
Okay, 2 options there, both teams to score. Mark is the safe option at 1.9, or if you want the bigger price, Villa to win for Miguel with both teams to score, comes out at 365. Ticket prices has been a big issue with Villa, so whether that impacts the atmosphere for these Champions League nights post Bayern Munich, who knows? But yeah, you've set that game up nicely. Really looking forward to it. Let's move on. Leipzig versus Liverpool here. This is another pretty decent game on paper. Anyway, Leipzig 4.0, Liverpool slightly odds on at 192 favorites. The draw is 4.2. You can get both teams to score, yes, 154. The market expecting a lot of goals here. The Asian handicap line sees Leipzig get a half goal start at just above even money, and the total for this one stands at 3.5. Unders is 1.7. So Mark, yeah, it's hard not to be impressed with Arne Slott's start to Liverpool this season.
Yeah, absolutely. Passed their biggest test of the season really on Sunday, but I didn't think they were as convincing as some people thought they might be pre-game. Didn't think they're quite as comfortable as probably Arne Slot would have liked either. And look, they won. They celebrated at the end. You could see the significance of the victory in those celebrations. Curtis Jones was immense, but Chelsea had the chances, and arguably better chances than Liverpool. So you know, they hit the woodwork, had more XG, more shots in the box. And obviously game state did play a part in that. But if that match had ended all square, I don't think there would have been too many complaints from Liverpool. So, yeah, for me, I definitely marked Chelsea up a touch after that match, whereas with Liverpool, I've not really done a huge amount with my ratings, and I'm still not properly bought in just yet. And I guess I said we'll learn more about the Liverpool after the Chelsea game. We'll definitely know more about Liverpool after this week, having to play Chelsea, go to Leipzig, and then play Arsenal at the weekend too. That's a proper litmus test of a week to see where they really are at. So I still have a couple of sort of niggling doubts about Liverpool and whether they can be trusted at odds-on quotes at Leipzig. City were 1.7 here last season. Real Madrid were 2.36 here last season. So Liverpool at 1.9-ish after being around even money on trips to Milan and Man United just feels, I'm happy to leave that alone, put it that way. And it's not a game I've got a huge betting opinion on, but look, I oppose Liverpool on the handicap at home to Bologna. I posed them on the handicap against Chelsea at the weekend, not lost a penny doing either. So I'm going to back Leipzig with a half-goal start here at 2.08. It's not a big or confident play, as I say. I do think it's a tricky betting heat, but we've seen in the past how tricky Leipzig can be on a big European night at home. I know Juventus won here on matchday 2, but that did not reflect the balance of play. They scored 3 goals from just 6 shots. Leipzig had 19, 15 of those inside the penalty area. Hit the woodwork twice, created 6 big chances according to Opta's metric. And if you look over the last 3 years, Leipzig have paid out for half-goal backers against PSG, Man City twice, Real Madrid. They've also lost by a solitary goal at home to Real Madrid when they were the much better side last season, and did lose 3-1 to Man City as well, which is understandable. But that's not a bad track record on playing sort of the cream of European football at home in Champions League formats over the last 3 years. So willing to give them a puncher's chance here at odds against to avoid defeat.
Okay, that's available at 2.06. That's the Asian handicap line. Effectively, Leipzig double chance if you're backing them plus half a goal. Miguel, over to you on this one.
Yeah, actually, very similar thinking to Mark there in terms of Liverpool. And that obviously results have been good. There have been spells in many of their games where they look very good and you can see a kind of a slot ideal. But then equally, and this is also the case in the win over Chelsea, there are lots of spells I've had this season where they go through this kind of, they just look, it's a ponderous kind of football where they look quite flat. And obviously that stands out all the more because, you know, what characterized Klopp more than anything was just the electricity of the football, the amount of events happening. It is, of course, unfortunate for Slot that he's going to be compared to his predecessor, but that is also the reality of the job he's taken on. And standing back, he's obviously done a very, very good job so far in terms of just, well, as much as anything, I think, stabilizing the club. And you can see where they are in the league. But yeah, as Mark said, it's still as if we don't know the reality of the team yet, which we're probably going to find a bit out over the next few weeks. And the fact a game as challenging as this comes on the back of a difficult one like Chelsea, I suppose, starts to help give a truer picture, starts to ask more questions of the team. But because of all that, and because of what Mark has spoken about there in terms of Leipzig can be a big challenge, I think it's been interesting this season that there's been a little bit of a kind of contrast between their domestic form and their admittedly brief European results or European spell so far. Not just in results, but also in terms of the number of goals being scored in their games. So their Bundesliga games have been quite they've been restrained, and a lot of nils there on the opposition side. Whereas obviously there's been, particularly the last game against Juventus, there's been utter chaos in their Champions League matches. But because of that Bundesliga form, because they're at home here, and because of that slot approach, my inclination is to go low here. Now, under 3.5 mightn't sound that low, but I suppose just the fact it's at 1.7, so feels like there's maybe that just gives you enough of an opening, and there's enough there. But I do find this game a little bit difficult to predict because of all that. The temptation is to go low scoring, but there's just that possibility, especially as we saw with that Juventus game, that it can spark off. It might actually be another Liverpool game where it's 2 matches in one period very slow and extremely tactical, and then 1 goal potentially opens it, which is also what happened on Sunday.
Okay, yes, that's under 3.5 goals. Miguel taking on the high goal line there, 1.7 Leipzig, double chance, effectively plus half a goal for Mark, 2.06. But tread with caution is the theory from the guys there. Looking forward to Leipzig versus Liverpool. Let's move on to probably the game of the week here: Barcelona versus Bayern Munich. Both these teams top of their respective domestic leagues, but sit 16th and 15th respectively in the Champions League table after 2 games. Barcelona 2.42 favourites, Bayern 2.88. The draw is available at 4.1. Both teams to score, yes, 1.39 on Matchbook. That's nearly as low as we've had. I think Brighton have threatened that a few times as well. Bayern are getting a quarter goal head start, 1.87, and the goal line 3.5, basically 50-50. Mark, give us your take on these 2 teams' start to the season. I mentioned their domestic league form, Champions League, 1 win, 1 defeat. I guess with this new format, it is intriguing enough. If a team loses this game, they might be under a bit of pressure.
Maybe.
I'm trying, Mark. I'm trying, mate. I'm trying as best I can.
Yeah, I think both will be absolutely fine. Barca's defeat was away at Monaco and they had a red card inside the opening 15 minutes or so. And Bayern, despite being on Villa in the long shot in our last show, Bayern probably didn't deserve to lose that game. In all honesty, they created enough, were quite profligate, and Martinez made some good stops as well. So I think both will be fine, and really looking forward to this. Actually, I think because it is such a long group stage, and there is less jeopardy on the big boys. In theory, we will hopefully see games open up and have a bit of fun with them, and that's my thought process coming into this. It's got the potential for goals. It smells like goals. I'm going to back goals, and like over 3.5 goals. It's odds on, but at 198, I don't mind a crack at that, considering just the ability both sides possess in forward areas, the fact that both sides are contributing, the firepower, and both sides have shown defensive vulnerabilities as well. Now, Bayern obviously have that rich history against Barca. They've pummeled them in the last 6 head-to-heads, haven't they? I think they've scored 22 goals in the last 6 head-to-heads, all of which they've won. They've been quite good under company. I'm not sort of going to go overboard there. Certainly in forward areas, they've been good. As I say, they should have scored against Villa. Really should have scored more than 1 goal against Leverkusen in that draw. But they scored 3 goals and more in every other game. Bar 1, which kind of shows their ability in the final third. Expect them to score here, expect them to contribute here as well. Barca already kept 4 clean sheets in 12 across all comps. Alaves, Young Boys, Getafe, and Valladolid. Not quite on the same caliber as Bayern Munich, and they're playing with a very high line at the minute, and I can absolutely see the pace of the Bayern forward players, particularly out wide, causing them problems in transitions there. But like Bayern Munich, they've been really formidable in forward areas. They've scored twice or more in 10 of 12. One of those 2 that they didn't was that Monaco match where the early red card went against them. They scored 3 or more goals in 6 of the last 8. Lewandowski's back in his goal-scoring form of old. Rafinha's been immense, creating and converting. Yamal, I think, is on the way to being one of the best players in the world. Pedri and Gavi are fit as well, so there's a big boost for Barca in the middle, who are rated as the weaker of the 2 teams according to the market. I wouldn't necessarily agree with that, but I just think take the result out of the equation here and just support goals. Don't really have a huge amount of reasoning or justification to support my selection here, other than just these 2 teams have got lots of attacking players and are good at scoring goals, so it should be good fun. Yeah, happy to go over 3.5 here.
Miguel, you agree that both these teams have good attacking players and there should be goals?
It also just feels like, I suppose, given even the kind of structural or the demographic makeup of the teams just feeds into this. Obviously, Barcelona, in terms of demographic, I mean, they're so young, it's and which maybe can play into a certain, I don't want to say naivety because it's the obvious word there, but they're not fully tuned as a defensive force in that sense. But yet, that's been complemented by superb expression of talent. On the other side, then, well, a Vincent Kompany Bayern Munich or a Vincent Kompany team can be got at. And actually, I mean, just when I was looking at it, because I saw Mark's pick first and thought, do I go higher than that in I suppose maybe predictable style? But I think at 1.98 is maybe an unnecessary risk, because it's decent for 3.5. But the possibility there is to go higher. And yeah, this does feel like one of those games that will go, that a 2-2 that could become a 3-2 either way, or maybe more.
Okay, yeah, over 3.5 goals, 198. There are, of course, alternative goal lines, as Miguel touched on there on Matchup. They are very competitively priced the higher they go up. So really do compare that on Odds Checker, and you might be getting a juicy price on some of those odd lines. Let's move on to any other bets. Got a comment in saying Brest versus Leverkusen is the game of the week, and I'd like to retract my initial statement about Barcelona versus Bayern, because of course this is the game of the week. Mark 2nd versus 4th. Massive if the team gets a win here. Top 8 is very much on the cards with 3 wins.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it'd be enormous for Brest if they were able to sort of start the campaign with 3 successive wins. I've actually managed to catch all 4 games involving these 2 teams so far this season in the Champions League. I've seen a reasonable amount of them domestically too, and just really fascinated to see how this game plays out, because you assume Leverkusen's class will tell. But do you want to back them at sort of 1.5 favourites away at Brest? I think you have to work harder to make that pay. I think there are ways to make it pay. But this will absolutely be Brest's biggest test so far. Sturm Graz and Salzburg, a nice introduction to Champions League football. But, they've given themselves a tremendously good chance. The way in which they've gone about their business has been eye-opening. They've been just absolutely brilliant on the counter-attack, actually. Really, really have hurt teams in transition. But out of possession, they've been just really, really annoying, I guess, for an opposition side. They've been brilliant. Like, they're just so intense. If you look at the PPDA figures so far in the Champions League, that's a measurement which is used to sort of analyze pressing. Only 3 sides have a lower PPDA, which kind of goes to show how, in their faces Brest have been when possession has been turned over. And when they do turn possession over themselves, they're just creating big chances almost at will, at least in those 2 games anyway. And yeah, quite often it's just get the ball as fast as possible to Ludovic Ajorc and play off him. But it's been working brilliantly. He is a bit of a journeyman striker, but a massive, massive man, but with a quality skill set. I guess I'd compare him to Mark Viduka, if you like. But his assist for one of the goals against Salzburg on matchday 2 was delightful. But yeah, they are a very low budget team and obviously lack the star quality of most of their rivals in this competition. And their goalkeeper's been quite busy so far. He's prevented more goals than anyone else in terms of XG conceded, 3.1, no goals yet conceded, but Leverkusen will break that record. I'm fully expecting them to score possibly a couple of goals here, because going forward there's few better teams in Europe at the minute than Bayer Leverkusen, but their games are just producing goals, crazy numbers as well. 11 games across all comps, 41 goals. They've scored twice or more in 8 of those, but they've also conceded multiple goals on 5 occasions and kept just 3 clean sheets, one of which was against lower league opposition. I know they nilled Feyenoord in Milan, but were quite fortunate to do so, actually. Feyenoord really brought the noise in the first half, didn't get their rewards, didn't bring their finishing boots that day, and got sucker punched by Leverkusen. Milan actually had 16 shots away at Leverkusen, 9 from inside the box, hit the woodwork but couldn't score, actually. So, and Leverkusen have had really big problems so far this season domestically, defending transitions and counterattacks. So, stylistically, you think Brest will have opportunities in this game to hurt them. They scored, admittedly, in defeat against Marseille and PSG in Liga so far this season. I think something similar could be on the cards, actually. So instead of backing Leverkusen around 1.5, you can back them to win alongside both teams to score at 3.15. In what I think could be quite a good fun watch, actually. I think Brest will give it a really good go, and hopefully they can get on the score sheet despite defeat.
Okay, yeah, when the win could be enormous for either side. So Leverkusen, both teams have scored 3.16, the selection for marking that game. Miguel, over to you for Arsenal versus Shakhtar Donetsk. Arsenal 1.11 to win the game. However, if you do couple that with both teams to score now, Arsenal to keep a clean sheet, that does come up and jump up to 174.
Yeah, obviously people will be looking at the weekend, whether Arsenal will be rocked in that sense. I don't necessarily see that as an issue. I think this Arsenal team actually have been good at responding to setbacks in this way. And almost this is the perfect type of game to play after that, because it's an opportunity to set it right. They are obviously better than Shakhtar. It's at home, Champions League. And yeah, Arsenal, both teams to score, no. And I suppose we'll come on to maybe more specific pick in the long shots. But it's one of those that jumps out. And that's one thing actually I do think about this modern Champions League, or this new Champions League, and one thing to consider in future. It's almost a little bit like, say, South American qualifying for the World Cup, where there's certain fixtures, particularly, say, matches at high altitude, where there's real opportunity there for value. And I think that's similar with some of these Champions League games, where there's a specific type of fixture, particularly where it's big team against medium tier team, the same way in the all group stage, where if you can be a bit creative or lump a few together, that again offers real opportunity. And this is a classic. Similar to that, I suppose, when that one in the opening night or the opening week when Bayern destroyed Zagreb. I think they're games to look out for in this sort of situation.
Okay, yeah, 174 Bolivia, good example in altitude in the South American qualifiers, their home record in the World Cup qualifying so far. Might as well follow on with your long shot, Miguel, here, which is the correct score. So 7.4 for 3-0 here. You can see that happening, Arsenal responding, but not obviously going all out and scoring 5, 6, 7 goals.
I think they'll be, they're that bit more restrained this season. Also, in terms of actually opening up as well, let's not forget they're potentially missing the 2 best attacking players in Odegaard and Saka. So I just feel it'll be a restrained but convincing Arsenal win. And again, 3-0 is one of those that just jumps out at you.
Okay, yeah, 7.4, big price. Move on to Mark O'Hare, landed his long shot over the weekend. Well done, mate. 3.5 shot. We're going up to 4.0. I guess if there is goals in Barcelona versus Bayern, who's going to score them?
Well, that's it, isn't it? You look to the obvious candidates, and it's Robert Lewandowski and Harry Kane on both sides. So I'm going to back both of those players to score. Comes in at 3-1, 4.0. I think that's not a bad price for a game where the goal expectancy is sitting at 365 and over 3.5 goals is an odds-on shot. So, you don't need me to sort of explain how good Robert Lewandowski and Harry Kane are in forward areas. But so far this season, Lewandowski's got 14 goals in 12 club appearances, 10 in his last 5. Kane's got 13 in 10. He's already scored 3 hat-tricks this season, including the weekend. Both are on penalty duty for their clubs as well. And I know this isn't the right way to sort of go about business, but if you combine both players' records so far this season, that's 27 goals in 12 club appearances, which is just crazy figures. So back both players to score in the same game. It comes in at 3-1, which I think is a reasonable sort of price to cheer on as a long shot for that game.
Okay, yeah, 4.0 Lewandowski and Kane to score anytime on the bet builder with Matchbook. Let's move on to best bets. I might go back to you, Mark, because this is a big talking point. Celtic, and it's who we are, mate, I guess applies to Brendan Rodgers and this Celtic team away from home. I found his interview after the Barcelona game about not reading the room there. Terrible, to be honest with you. A lot of Celtic fans want Celtic to adapt tactically. Will they adapt tactically with Brendan Rodgers away from home in big European venues like Atalanta?
I don't think so. We've not seen evidence of it in the past, actually. So I'm not sure why he would change now. He'll feel this is an opportunity for Celtic. So rather than being pragmatic, I would expect Celtic to try and play on the front foot. That's where their strengths are at. That's where their key players are at. So, but ultimately, away in the Champions League, Celtic have been atrocious for long past a decade. But go back to September 2017, they beat Anderlecht away from home. Since then, 8 defeats from 9 away from home in this competition, conceding 36 goals, which is an average of 4 per game. Go back to the start of 2022-23, they've conceded more goals home or away than any side in the Champions League at an average of 2.7, and no side has given up a higher expected goals per shot faced than Celtic during that sequence either, which being destroyed by Dortmund, conceding 7, wobbled a lot in the second half against Aberdeen on Saturday in the big game in the Premiership. And Atalanta don't normally require too much encouragement to get forward and attack teams, and they've scored 18 goals in Serie A this season. Were very impressive in putting Shakhtar away on match day 2. Held Aston, of course, at home in Bergamo in their opener as well. Were pretty cushy at the weekends, winning at Venezia. Not really getting out of second gear, and they'll be targeting this match as well, I suspect. So I think Atalanta absolutely score a couple of goals in this game and win it, and it's just whether Celtic can contribute, really. And I wouldn't put it past them, actually. Atalanta have kept just 1 clean sheet domestically. Celtic have scored in every game, did generate over 2 expected goals at Dortmund, despite being dismantled. And I just think Brendan Rodgers will ask his team to play front foot football. And I think it will be a goal-heavy game. So to combine the two, Atalanta to win and over 2.5 goals gives us 197. So that's 2-1, 3-0, that sort of thing. I think that's perfectly plausible.
Okay, the guys, and they landed that pretty similar bet, I think, or it might have been the same bet with Dortmund as well when they hosted Celtic in week 1. And a bit of a Scottish Premiership title race there. Celtic 2-0 up at home to second place Aberdeen, gave it away 2-2. So hopefully we get a bit of a title race up in Scotland with it. Great seeing a team outside the old firm up there challenging for the league. Miguel, Manchester City managed to get a win last minute. What have you made them this season? They're just ticking along without Rodri, managing to get the wins or maybe a point away from home. That's good for them. This is probably a spot where they can rest and rotate a bit.
Yeah, with Rodri, I suppose the thing is, it is a classic case when he's not there. You see even more of the value. And I think it's because at the base of City's midfield, he just consumes. He personally can consume so much space, and also basically just attract the ball to him, and make it a little bit like Busquets at Barcelona and for Spain. That play is built really all around that exact type of player. So when they're missing, they are more open. It does maybe feed into my pick here, and that you couldn't, although Sparta Prague are a very moderate side relative to Manchester City, there is a capacity for a goal from them here. Especially if Guardiola does rotate. But on the whole, it's like that Arsenal game. It's one of those that just stands out. You can see it could go 4-0, 5-0 City. They are very good at just kind of, ticking off these sort of games. So I've gone City Sparta over 3.5 goals. Or with a City win, of course, sorry.
Okay, City win over 3.5 goals, 197 there. My thanks to Mark and Miguel. Mark will be back on Thursday to preview the Premier League's action. A lot to look forward to there. Insights.matchday.com, full recap of all the guys' picks. Hit that like button and subscribe completely for free if you're watching on YouTube. But until then, we will chat to you on Thursday. Enjoy the Champions League football this week. Bye-bye.